On August 3rd, 1991, Moss Hill and his wife Tracy were playing in the social lounge on the MTS Oceanos cruise ship when the ship suddenly sank to the bottom of the ocean. But the story didn't start out like this. It was just a normal day like any other. They were a prominent part of the cruise ship's music band, but something happened that would forever change not only their lives, but the lives of everybody else on that cruise. Out of nowhere, as beautiful as a day as it was, a heavy storm starts to get near to the ship and the ship begins to lean over. No one understood why this happened, but worst of all, they would see the waiters on the cruise struggling to serve food and drinks to the passengers on the ship, and it started to shake uncontrollably. Even Moss and Tracy suffered to play music that night in the band, as the movement gradually became worse and worse. But the couple were not going to give up, and they repeatedly shouted, "The show must go on." Making matters worse, everybody started to go to the lounge area to hear the music, as this was a way to get their minds off of not only the storm, but the shocking tumbling of the ship. As the passengers were looking for some music to make the time easier to pass, everyone thought that there was some sort of hurricane outside, a horrific storm, or even a tsunami that had been rocking the boat and causing so much turbulence. But what they didn't know was that there had been a silent explosion in the engine room of the cruise ship. And I'm sure you know that if you're moving on any sort of vessel, such as an airplane or cruise ship, the first thing the pilot and crew members do is tell you to stay calm. And that's exactly what they did. But what they didn't know is that every minute that passed, the ship would begin to sink more and more towards the bottom of the ocean. Everyone tried to stay calm, but suddenly the lights of the ship went out, and that's when all panic let loose, and fear riddled the ship. Everyone was in shock, as no one knew exactly what was going on. All they knew was that the ship was leaning back and forth, left to right, and suddenly bottles, glasses, plates, chairs, and even tables would fall over and crash to the ground. It confused so many people and left everyone in distress. Thankfully, Moss Hill kept his cool and still kept singing all the songs and playing his instrument. But even him, after a couple hours, decided to go and figure out what in the world was going on. Moss finds out that the captain stated everything is happening because of a complete engine failure. The captain would even tell him that everything should be back to normal very soon. But it sounded sketchy and Moss didn't believe it. The Zimbabwe guitarist knew that there was a huge and underlying problem that was just being covered up. So he decides to go down into the engine room and see for himself what in the world was going on. Making his way down to the bottom, he's shocked as he sees the deck officers running from one corner to another, and all of them were grabbing life jackets like crazy maniacs. The more and more levels he descends down, he sees that the metal doors that acted as safety barriers to prevent water from coming into the ship were all locked, just in case the lower decks became flooded. And it's at that moment he realized that behind those exact doors, it was filled with water up to the ceiling. And that's when he knew the ship was slowly sinking. Moss knew that he had to take matters into his own hands and started to descend the lifeboats into the water. But around 3 a.m., the lifeboats had run out, and there was still an astonishing amount of people, almost 220 people still on board. Moss even looked for the captain, but the guy was nowhere to be found. Out of desperation, he runs to the cruise ship radio and states over and over, "Mayday, Mayday, help, help!" Minutes and minutes went by with no response. But all of a sudden a voice appears and someone says, "What's going on? Where are you?" They asked him what are your coordinates and what is your rank, but the poor guy couldn't answer. He didn't even know how to respond. The only thing that he said was that I'm a guitarist of the band and my wife is the bass player. He just repeatedly begged for help. At this time, about 2 to 3 hours before the ship would begin to completely sink, they notified him that the rescue mission had to be by air. Because of the magnitude of the storm, no ship would be able to come and rescue them because of the extreme water conditions, as any ship close to the MTS Oceanos would probably collide with it and cause even more damage. Thanks to Moss, helicopters came to the rescue and rescued every single passenger. The ship sank 45 minutes after the last passenger was rescued, and Moss was considered a hero after the event as he saved 585 passengers. Thanks to his warrior character, always staying calm and having never-ending persistence, this is what led to his success story. But the story didn't have a happy ending. The only thing Moss regrets is the fact that he states the captain boarded the second helicopter that came. He was in a rush to leave the ship and didn't even care about the remaining hundreds of passengers. Please comment below on what you think about this story, and if you want to see more videos just like this, please click on the videos right on the screen.